We have been talking the last few weeks about rediscovering church. And it looks like a lot of people have discovered that they don't need it. They've decided to just, do whatever. And we've kind of lost our way. I know a lot of people are afraid because we're seeing a increase in COVID happening. Again, I don't know. It just totally amazes me that we were told that you can't go to work unless you get a vaccination. And so in the military, a lot of military personnel were severed or let go from the military. And now it's amazing because now they're paying them $50,000 to see if they could get someone to enlist to go into the service. And they're saying, no, we're not going if we have to take the vaccination. And they're saying, but you don't understand, the vaccination will keep this from spreading, and it'll do this and this and this. And we found out that, the president was double vaxxed and double boosted. He ended up getting COVID, came out with 3 negative tests on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then Friday, he comes back out again, and he's tested positive again. And they're finding out that vaccinations, and again, they're calling it a vaccination. It is not a vaccination. I wish they would quit telling us and changing our words. A vaccination is basically a form of whatever that is, and it will help you help your body to build up antibodies to fight against that disease, such as the things of measles, smallpox, typhoid fever, I think, and some of the others. You get a flu shot. A flu is called a shot, and there's a reason for it. They keep guessing which version of the flu is going to come out this year. And so now, this is my political statement for the day. It isn't really. But now it's amazing that, all the trials that they did, they were burying the results of the trials for 45 years. They wanted to bury it until 2045 and not tell anybody the results of it, how it, some of the effects on people. And I'm not saying, yay or nay. You have to decide for yourself what you want to do. But what I'm having to say is this. Our government is redefining our words. You're no longer an illegal alien. You are now an undocumented migrant. And so, by the way, we don't have any problem at the border with people coming across. And by the way, we're not going to build any more border. But did you know that they're building the border in Yuma, Arizona? And finishing. The gentleman that's sitting in the White House right now, who decided not to build anything but just to stop it all, secretly approved it. And so they are starting to build it because they have a problem. And by the way, the ones that they moved to Washington, D.C., when Washington, D.C. said we don't want any guards, National Guards on our street, are now asking for National Guards to come on their streets because they have a serious homeless problem. We've had a homeless problem in America for a long time. It's been well overlooked. And money has never been given to it. It's veterans that have come back from Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, with PTSD, with depression, anxiety, suicidal tendencies. And they're on the streets. And they don't get the health care that they need. and yet they won't fund that, but they want to fund everything else. And here's what a little tidbit of information. For your kids who are using TikTok, you need to get it off your phone. Totally and completely. It should never be on there. And the reason for that is TikTok is a Chinese firm. It is a Chinese software company. And in the little hidden agreement, what it says is this: when you put TikTok on your phone, that they can now go to your device and extrapolate all of your information off your phone. Stored passwords, all your apps, all of your contacts. And so therefore, once it gets your contacts, it ends up getting all of their information. And so what they've done is they basically have lifted everybody's information, and they'll use it more than one way or another. And so everybody loves this TikTok. And may I say to you, TikTok it off. Because we're coming down to a situation, and a very serious situation, that I don't think we're going to be here much longer. We see a lot of things that are going into place. For instance, do some checking up on COVID and the effects of what is called gain-of-function research, of where they're not only using that to attack humans, also attacking food supplies and everything else, and altering that. They came out and they also said to, who is it, 23andMe, where you give your DNA, that they are trying to get the DNA out of those databases to modify. So what they can do is get the DNA from your fourth cousin, and they can actually modify something to go after you personally. So if they wanted to kill someone, they could do that with a very direct thing. And I say all of that to say this. The church was given a job. It wasn't to be political, but it was to make statements of what's right and what's wrong. And what's happened is the church has been silent for so long. I'm not preaching politics this morning. I'm saying that both parties, Republicans and Democrats, are both crooked. There are crooked people in all politics. That's how they stay elected, a lot of them, for years and years and years. But what I'm saying is that the church has stayed silent and not spoke up. Today, remember on 9/11 in 2001, around 9 o'clock in the morning, when there were all of a sudden planes in the air going different directions, four planes, two that went into the World Trade Center towers, and the destruction that happened. While that was going on, there was another airplane that went into the Pentagon, into the side, and another airplane that went down in Pennsylvania that was headed back to the Capitol. And at that point in time, America was united because there were people that were terrorists that wanted to destroy our country. And they were labeled as such. Today, the group of people that are now called terrorists are parents who go to school board meetings and speak up about what's being taught to their children. And they're identifying those parents and putting them on a terror list. So therefore, the FBI and the government can now control you and put you in jail. And in some, they have already. And so what am I saying? What I'm saying is this. As Christians, we've sat back and not spoke up. In Matthew chapter 28, and we're good, this morning we're going to talk about, as we're talking about the purpose of a church, give you the definition again of what a church is. A church is a group of Christians who assemble as an earthly embassy of Christ's heavenly kingdom to proclaim the good news and commands of Christ the King, to affirm one another as the citizens through the ordinances, and to display God's own holiness and love through a unified and diverse people in all the world, following the teaching and example of elders, okay? Or those who are more mature, learned disciples of the scriptures, and teaching the others. And so when we start to understand what is the church for, the church isn't for everybody. We wish it was. We wish everybody would come, but everybody's not going to come. Why? Because we're diverse. There are some churches that are strictly this or this or this or this. What ends up happening is, and even here, people will leave because it doesn't meet their needs. I don't know about you, but I have never ever seen a definition in the scriptures that says, look for a church that meets my needs. It's look for a church, a group of people that I can join together as a family. Many of us come from families which didn't have much. We were poor. The old saying, we didn't even have 2 plug nickels to rub against each other. But yet, what we needed supplied. How? Because we all pitched in together. Growing up as a child, I was not allowed to sit around and do nothing. I wasn't hyperactive, but I was told there are times to sit and there are times to stand. There are times to get your chores done. And after the chores get done, then you can have time for yourself to do those things. And so a lot of things would happen. So in a church, we need to understand what the church is here for. And we read those verses already in Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 and verse number 20. Okay? When his disciples came and saw Jesus, they saw him. But yet some still doubted it was him. Jesus came near to them. And he told them this. He said, listen, all authority has been given to me in heaven and in earth. When Jesus went back to the Father, after he had given his life on the cross, after he was there for 3 days, and then arose when they came back on the first day of the week or Sunday, and they saw he was gone, he went back to the Father and he said, okay, you love them so much that you want a reconciliation with them so that they can now enjoy the perfection of what you have created. And Father, you wanted me to go and live a sinless life. You wanted me to be born just like they are. You wanted me to come from the womb just like they are. You wanted me to nurse from my mother just like they do. You wanted me to grow and experience what it's like to grow from a baby into a child and sit and learn at the feet of the elders in the synagogue. Even though I know the Word, even though I am the Word, I'm still learning and showing them. And so that's what I did, Father. And God told Jesus, he said, here it is. I am going to reward you for your faithfulness. Just the same thing that he's going to do to us, to reward us for our faithfulness. Not our unfaithfulness, but our faithfulness. He said, here's what I'm going to do. Jesus, you now are in control. The only thing you don't know is when I'm going to tell you it's finished. You don't know when I'm going to say to you, son, go get your bride. That's the only thing that I'm withholding from you. Other than that, Jesus, all of the angels, they're under your control. Everything in the heavens is under your control. Everything on this earth is under your control. I have given you all power in heaven and in earth. And what did Jesus say to his disciples? Go back to verse number 18. Jesus came near and said, listen, all authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. And based upon all that authority that I have been given, here's what I want you to do. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations. I don't want you to pick and choose who you want to be your disciple. I don't want you to pick and choose who you want to deliver the message to. I was here this week and I share with you my day. It starts with, I'm up, Lord, I'm ready. I have no clue who I'm going to meet today. I have no idea what we're going to say. I have no idea what needs are going to be met. But God, just help me not to forget those moments. Because you know what's going to happen. I was talking to someone on Tuesday morning. And as we were talking, I told them, I said, hold on a minute, I got to go get something out of my car real quick and I'll be right back. I walk out of the car and I see a lady walking down the street. She's on the other side. And she hollers at me. And she says, do you know where the Laurels are? And I said, oh, yeah. She says, oh, thank you so much. She said, I got off the bus here at Roosevelt, and I was walking down the road, and it was hot Tuesday morning. I was walking down the road going from Roosevelt down to Lamberton. She was going the wrong way. She wanted to get off on Grand, where the Laurels is where Kensington was. They just changed their name, up here on Jackson. And I started to walk away. I said, yeah, it's just 1 block up. And it was hot and she was sweaty. And something said, what are you doing? Why are you making her walk? It will only take you 1 minute to get the church van, get in it, and take her up there and drop her off and come back. So I told the lady, the person that I was talking to on Tuesday, I said, I'll be right back. There's a lady out here who needs help. I'm going to go do it. We had a great conversation. She said, I'm looking for a church. I think I found one. She said, I just live right over here. She says, I was praying, God, send someone. And she said, and I was praying as you were walking away, God, should I holler at him and ask him for a ride? And she said, and I didn't. And I said, well, you should have. I said, but God spoke to me too and says, no, you need to give her a ride. Would she generally have been somebody that I'd probably given a ride? Probably not. But I can't pick and choose. Because he said, no, I want you to go into all nations. All nations. Not the ones you choose. And that's why sometimes we forget about why we're here. And here's what he says. I want you to teach them to observe everything that I have commanded you. And remember, I am with you always, even until the end of the age. So many times we forget what we're here for. We think that we're here for church so that I can get blessed. And it's not. I had a video in there that I didn't play. Can you play that video for me? It's just called If. It was right before the second song.
Many times we blame everyone and everything else for our situation when the problem is this little two-letter word. What is that word? If. I'll give my life to Jesus if. Fill in the blank. How often this word stands in the way of our obedience to God.
I would share Jesus with people at my job if...
I'd start tithing if...
I would enter into the worship today if...
I'd spend more time with my kids
I would go on that missions trip.
I'd start treating my wife better if...
God, I'll really start serving you if...
By adding if, we make excuses. We bargain with God. We set conditions for our obedience or try to shift the responsibility to others. The word if implies that God needs to do more to hold up his end of the bargain. He has already done what we need most. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. He didn't die for us based on if. He died for us because. Because he loved us with an unquenchable love. Let's not obey God if. Let's obey him because. Let's love God because. Today, let's enter into worship not based on if, but because. Let's lose the if. Because.
So I go to church if it's a good service. I go to church if I like the songs. I go to church if I fit in. I go to church if. I worship because I work in the church if. And it's not if, it's because. I go to church, this church, because God sent me here. He didn't send me down the street across over to Timbuktu. He sent me here and said, and so what do? I serve because he put me here. Remember what we said? Church is a job. Being a Christian, it's a job. And one of these days we're going to get paid a paycheck. There's going to be some people that's going to get a paycheck with flat zeros. Do you know that? The only thing that's going to get them to heaven is because they were saved. They have nothing to show for their salvation, nothing. But just they gave their life to Jesus and said, there it is, but then took it back and did whatever they wanted to. The life was theirs. The soul is his. When we give it to him, we give it to him. And it's not ours to take back. doesn't work that way. We gave it to him to entrust it so that we don't lose it, because we could if it was dependent upon us. So what we need to do is, what's the purpose of the church? The purpose of the church is not to have a good worship team. It's not to have a good this or good that or good anything. There are some things that the church can't even do. But the church, what the purpose of the church is this: it's to turn outsiders into insiders. Those that are outside looking for something, looking for hope, looking for help. And the church should be there to give them hope and to give them help. But so many times internally within the church, we aren't even together. We're divided. And he's saying, no, I don't want you to do that. So we turn outsiders into insiders. The second thing is, we are to proclaim the gospel of the good news of Jesus Christ. Not what we feel, not what we think, but we are to proclaim his news. And what is the good news? The good news is this: that Jesus Christ came, died, rose again, so that you and I can enjoy perfection the way that God created it and wanted it to be. But the only way that we can do that is because it is reserved for his children and the bride of Christ. It's not reserved for everybody. Everybody doesn't go to heaven. That's their choice. And they make it. And so we need to understand that. So what do? After we come to the saving knowledge of Jesus, then we have a job, and that is to teach others how to become a disciple. And I know a lot of people say, but Pastor, you don't understand. I don't know how to teach someone. You know how the best way to teach somebody is? Not by a book. It's by a life. You know how I show my wife that I love her? Not by telling her. I show her that I love her by actions. Love is not a noun. It is not a feeling or emotion. We use it as such. It is a verb that says, if Jesus said, you tell me that you love me by your words, I'll show you how I love you by what I do. That's how we show others that we love them. And this is what God is saying. He says, how do you share how to become a disciple? Remember, as I was sharing with you in the very beginning, I looked to the west and it was raining. I could have kept my face towards the west, looking and saying the whole day is going to stink because it's going to do nothing but rain all day. Or I could turn around to the sun and realize it may be raining here, but it's sunshine here. And so all of a sudden, my life changed. My feeling about the day changed. It was no longer rainy, it was sunshine. And so what happens when we become a Christian, people that knew us prior to that should see a change in us. Something happened. And what do? They come up to you and they say, listen, I've been watching you. I've been watching you for the last 3-4 weeks. Something happened to you 3 or 4 weeks ago. I don't know what it was, but something happened. What was it? That right there, is the opportunity and the chance to share and make a disciple. I don't know all of the ins and outs of Scripture, theology, and all of the things in there when I was 10 years old, when I became a Christian, but I knew that something happened, and it was up to me to share and to tell people. Going through school, and now 50 years later, I got a lot of people that I'm following from school. I can't tell you how many of those people that I never knew were Christians in school. But you listen to them now. It is all about praising God, mission trips, this and this and this and this and this. And we all have this thing of how was your weekend? How was your day? What happened? You know? And just certain things that are there. But understanding what God has told us, he says, here's what I need you to do. Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 and verse number 16. You are the light of the world. A city situated on a hill cannot be hidden. Verse number 16. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. So what am I supposed to do? One more, Galatians chapter 6 and verse number 10. Let me get all three of these together. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us work for the good of all, especially for those who belong to the household of faith. He says, hey, you know what we're supposed to do? Be a light, not just to the world, but to each other. Because people are going to come in here and they're going to be hurting. Someone died, lost a job, don't have any food, have COVID, they've lost loved ones, and all of these things. And they're looking for hope. As I've been sharing with you, do you know that over 40% of all marriages of Christians ends up in a divorce? 60% if they're not Christians. 40% of all marriages who are both Christians end up in a divorce. And people say, well, be a Christian and that'll solve all the issues. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. We still have issues. We still have problems. As I was sharing with you, you know how many Christians have depression and anxiety? 2 out of 6. 2 out of 6. And you know what happens? Most of the time the church isn't equipped to handle it. And so what do some churches tell people is that's demon possession. That's not correct. And I'll share with you why. In the Bible, in the Old Testament, I think I shared this on Wednesday night. In the Old Testament, God said that there were some people and they were being disobedient and everything else, and he was going to turn them over and they were going to be mad. Basically, they were going to be running around, and when someone was like running around, and I don't like using this term, but this is the term that the Bible used, and this is what they called them. They're running around like a crazy person. That's all they were doing, was just running around like a crazy person. It's in the book of Joshua, I believe it is, because he was talking to Joshua and said, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to turn these over to this. And so in the Old Testament, they believed that people who were who were sick, it was because of God's divine providence. God did it to them. Then when they came into the New Testament, in the New Testament, remember when Jesus was talking? And he was healing people? And they were saying, hold on a minute, how can you do this? He says, well, because my Father has given me permission to do this. He's given me authority to do this. He's given me the power to do it. And so I'm healing the sick. I'm healing the blind, the lame, and casting out demons. And they turn around and they said, he is crazy. He is mad. He is the son of Beelzebub, the god of Satan, the devil. And when you continue to read in that verse, it says in his family, Mary and his brothers and his sisters went to get Jesus from where he was at and bring him home because he was being accused of being mad or crazy. And so what happened was, in the New Testament, they believed that you were crazy or you had a mental issue because you were possessed with a demon. And so to churches today, when someone comes in with anxiety and depression, they tell them that they have demons in them. And we're going to do an exorcism and cause the demon to leave. When they've proven that anxiety and depression a lot of that is a genetic makeup or a chemical imbalance or a misfiring in the brain. So if that is demonic, I have diabetes. It is genetic. You already have a presupposition to it. I didn't get it because I had a demon other than Coca-Cola and Reese cups and sweets and eating them all of the time. And I guess if I had did an exorcism on the Coke and the Reese cup before I ate it, I probably wouldn't have gotten that, because that was the demon. The demon wasn't me. The demon was that. But yet, nobody comes up and says, I need to do an exorcism on you because you have a demon and you have diabetes. No. Incorrect. Yes, there is demon possession. Okay? Yes, there is. It is real. But there's also this point where it isn't a possession, but basically it is a demon that is just after you in a lot of ways, in a lot of things that's happening, okay? But please understand something, and this is what we need to get, and that is this. In the church, people are coming and they are hurting. They're hurting. And we need to help them in their pain. We may not be able to do everything for them, but we need to know where we can go. Yes, we can go to God. Yes, we can pray. But yes, there are times we need to talk. There are times we need to share. There are things that we need to tell people. Why? Because they think there's something wrong with them, so they're not telling anybody about Jesus. And we need to understand that we, ladies and gentlemen, we have to love outsiders. Not just who our immediate circle of friends is. It has to expand. Because if that person gets saved, you're going to heaven with them. And I'm sorry, but you can't tell them, I'm sorry, but this is my property. You can't come here. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to Him. And what we're going to do is take care of what He gives us. We will be the stewards. When you get to heaven, it isn't going to be sit down and let's just talk about everything. We're going to whistle while we work. You know? It's going to be God and all of his angels and us. So we need to have our focus. It always needs to be on seeing lost people come to the forgiveness of Jesus Christ. That's our job. That's our job. Whoever we can share with. Why? Because the Bible tells us that we are sinners. And our sin separates us from the mercy of God. But when we acknowledge our sin before the merciful God, and he gives us mercy, which is everlasting life, everlasting love, and everlasting fellowship with one another and with him in a perfect world. Isn't that what we're looking for? Isn't that what we're searching for? And this is what he wants to give to us. So what happens? When you and I got saved, or when you and I get saved, there is something that occurs. You see, when you and I were born, we were born with sin. It was there. Now, up to a point, God had you covered. But then at some point, you recognized, this isn't right. I can continue to do this, but God, I need you. And the day that I told God, I can't do this by myself anymore. I've made a mess of it. God, I don't need you to fix it. That isn't what I'm asking you to do. What I'm asking, God, is you to restore me. Restore me back to the way that you wanted me to be. You see, because even before you and I were even thought of, God said, I knew you in your mother's womb. Even before the creation of the world, I knew you because I can see all things. Time is nothing to me. It's just a big window that I can see and see through and see everything. And he said, and here's what I saw. I saw you from the very beginning. And Chuck, here's what I did. I started dividing those cells just the way that I wanted those cells divided. You have some of the characteristics of your mom and your dad. But can I tell you something? You have instilled in you all the characteristics of me as your father. And here's the way I want you to be. I want you to be perfect. At the end of the life, you're going to die. And the body that is born, it's started decaying from the day that you came out of the womb. And one day, you're going to die. And that body's going to go back to the dust. And I'm going to give you a new body. A new body that's going to last for all eternity. Can I tell you something that sometimes you may not think? Do you know lost people are going to have a body that's going to last forever? Do you know that body's going to feel pain? Do you know, as a lost person, your memory is not erased? See, as Christians, we tend to forget sermons. We remember a bits and pieces of it. But can I give you a little secret? A lost person's going to remember every sermon ever given, ever heard. And for all eternity, in their mind, they're going to hear. There was a verse that I kept hearing over and over. It was a verse called John 3:16. Supposed to have been a verse in the Bible. I don't know. I didn't even believe in the Bible. But the Bible said, "For God so loved the world." And I remember that person that gave me that verse telling me that meant me. And I said, "No, you don't understand. If God loved me, then why is it that the world has all these issues and all these problems? If God's such a loving God, then why do babies die? Why is there cancer? Why is there all of this stuff? There is no God. It's just the figment of your imagination, something that you just dreamed up." And for some reason, I believe that they're going to be looking into heaven and seeing all of the people smiling, the little children, or maybe a murderer who killed someone and was sent to jail or sent to their death. Maybe, just maybe, they're going to get a glimpse of how that person is enjoying life eternal. You see, because when the rich man died, he saw Lazarus and he saw Abraham. So what means they can also? But here's what I do know. They won't forget that someone told them about Jesus. I don't know how, again, certain things, I don't know how God does it, okay? But he's going to do it. If God lays somebody on your heart and you don't go, that's on you. That's on you. Because he says that the sins are going to be broadcast from the mountaintops. But he also says that all tears are going to be wiped away. No more pain, no more sorrow. One of the hardest pain and one of the hardest sorrow, ladies and gentlemen, is not seeing someone die. One of the greatest pain and one of the greatest sorrow is that when God spoke to you to go talk to somebody and you didn't go and that person died. You not knowing whether they became a Christian or not. That to me is the worst pain that we could ever experience. The physical pain, yes, we can get over with. But the mental stress and the Christian love that we have and not sharing Jesus with that person and having that person die, that has to be the most painful thing that we could ever experience. Because sometimes you don't forget it. You wish you could, but you don't. And that's why I tell you, if God lays somebody on your heart, you better do something about telling them about Jesus. That's our job. That's our job.